Hat Maker and the Monkeys. Long time ago, in a village in Mali, lived a hat maker who was thought to be the best hat maker in the whole of Africa. He could make hats for anyone. He could make hats for you, he could make hats for me. Make hats if you were 7 or 93. He could make hats for cats, he could make hats for dogs. He could make hats for parrots or water hogs. He could make hats for anyone. Now what he'd do would be to make some hats and take them to Timbuktu to market, where he would sell them and then take orders for new hats. To go to Timbuktu, he had to set off really early in the morning, before the sun came up. So he'd put his hats on his back in a sack and off he'd go, and he'd start walking and walking. As the sun came up, it got hotter and hotter, and he'd keep on walking and keep on going until the sun hit the top of the sky. And then he'd take a break, find a tree and have a snooze for an hour or 3. Then when the sun started going down, he'd get up and continue on his way to Timbuktu. Now one day he did this, but when he woke up from his snooze, he looked around and his sack of hats was no longer a sack of hats. It was just a sack. All the hats were gone. He looked here and he looked there and he looked up and he looked down. He looked everywhere, but the hats were nowhere to be seen. Then he heard a noise. He looked up. In the trees above him was a troop of monkeys, and each of the monkeys had on their heads a hat. "Give me back my hats," the hat maker said. "Ow, ow, ow, ow," said the monkeys. "Give me back my hats," said the hat maker. "Ow, ow, ow," said the monkeys. "Give me back my hats," said the hat maker. "Ow, ow, ow," said the monkeys. Eventually the hat maker took his own hat off, threw it on the floor and said, "Give me back my hats." And all of the monkeys took their hats off, threw them on the floor and went, "Ow." The hat maker quickly gathered up all of those hats, put them in his sack, and off he went to Timbuktu. Now you'd think that would be the end of the story, but it's not. Because many years later, when the hat maker was still making hats, but not strong enough to go off to Timbuktu, his son would go instead of him. He'd go really early in the morning, and he'd walk and walk and walk as the sun came up, and it'd get hotter and hotter and hotter. And when it reached the top of the sky, he'd take a break and find a tree and have a snooze for an hour or 3. And this one day he found exactly the same tree as his father had. And he fell asleep, and when he woke up, his sack of hats was no longer a sack of hats, it was just a sack. All the hats were gone. But he remembered the story his father told him. So he remembered what to do. He looked up and he saw all of those monkeys with a hat on their heads. And he said, "Give me back my hats." And the monkeys went, "Ow." And he said, "Give me back my hats." And the monkeys went, "Ow." And then he took his own hat off his head, threw it on the floor and said, "Give me back my hats." And all the monkeys just did this. And he said, "Hey, that's unfair. My father told me about this. And he told me that if I did give me back my hats, you'd go, "Rrr," and if I did give me back my hats, you'd go, "Rrr," and when I did give me back my hats, you'd throw your hats on the floor." And the monkey said, "And our fathers told us about it, but we learn from our mistakes."